Call the roll.
Glenn Whitley, County Judge.
Here.
Roy Charles Brooks, Commissioner Precinct 1.
Present.
Andy H. Wynn, Commissioner Precinct 2. Gary Fickus, Commissioner Precinct 3.
Here.
J.D. Johnson, Commissioner Precinct 4.
Here.
Constitutes a quorum.
Thank you. Our invocation today will be delivered by Chaplain Robert Bostic from the Alpha Omega Hospice. After the invocation, please remain standing for our pledges. Thank you for coming out today.
Father, help us to seize the gift of today and to use it wisely. I pray that you bless this court, its judge and its commissioners, and those that work behind the scenes to make it function. I pray, Father, that you bless our cities and their citizens, that you bless our county, and that, Father, you give us patience as we deal with the intricacies of leading this county. In the name of Jesus we pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. On the Texas flag, I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
So you nailed that last night.
Yes, I did.
Mr. Manius, agenda announcements, please.
Thank you, Your Honor. Members of the court, we have one item as relating to the agenda and then several comments. Under the administrator section, item 9A13, this is the contract amendment with Dispute Resolution Services. We're going to hold that for 1 week. We'll have that back on the agenda next week. Also today on the agenda, we are going to be taking action concerning 3 different budgets and 3 different tax rates. And we're going to have 3 public hearings. 2 of those deal with budgets and tax rates, and 1 is a community development public hearing.
Now, I'm sorry, but I thought we had to have 5 members present in order to vote on the tax rates.
No, we do not, Mr. Wright.
We have to have 4 members present, and there has to be a vote of at least 3. That's in the local government code of all places.
Okay.
For some reason, I thought, like the judge, that there was a requirement to serve in public office that you had to be present for the setting of the tax rate.
And I believe that Dallas County was the citing of that, because Roy Orr tells the story pretty regularly of the fact that he'd got up and left one time, and that after that there was a law that said that all 5 had to be present in order to be able to pass the budget and set the tax rate. Anyway, I think I would rather wait until all 5 of us are here before we do that.
Okay, we have public hearing. Okay. If I know that the statute that Ray's talking about, 81.06, has been the correct one since then, but if that's the desire of the court, then that will be the desire of the court.
If it's legal, I don't have a problem with acting.
I don't have a problem with acting on it today.
Then I guess we'll go on ahead and go forward based upon the district attorney's ruling.
If Ray finds something to the contrary, we can.
If the DA's office finds something to the contrary, we'll simply put it back on the agenda for next week.
We'll just have to redo it.
Yes, sir. I have one more announcement.
Okay.
On October 8th, you'll check your calendars or mark your calendars. We will not have a commissioners' court meeting on that date, October 8th.
That's statewide conference week.
Yes.
That's probably one.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. Court members, you have before you the minutes of our regular meeting of September the 3rd.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Proclamations.
Thank you, Your Honor. I have two proclamations, both for ratification only. The first recognizes Hispanic Heritage Month, which is September 15th through October 15th, and will be presented at the 16 de Septiembre parade this Saturday. The second proclamation is already presented. It honors Irma Johnson Hadley for her 45 years of service to Tarrant County College. So I move approval of both of those proclamations.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. And we lost one of our past commissioners, retired commissioners. Commissioner Johnson called and reminded us and asked that we close the court today in memory of Dick Anderson. So if it's all right, we'll do that.
Thank you.
Court members, you have before you the consent agenda.
Move approval.
Second. We have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. We have 3 public hearings.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Your Honor. Your Honor, we're requesting that the Commissioners Court conduct a public hearing to receive input as relates to salaries of certain elected county and precinct officials, which are contained within our FY14 budget. For the court's information, we have posted a legal notice of these salaries and allowances, and they have been properly posted.
I'll open the public hearing at this time and ask if there's anyone here wishing to speak to this matter. There appearing to be none, then I will close the public hearing.
Members of the Court, if we could go to item D, we're requesting that the Commissioners Court conduct a public hearing to receive public input concerning the Tarrant County government's fiscal year 2014 budget. All required public notices have been published.
I will open the public hearing at this time and ask if anyone is here wishing to speak to this particular item. There appearing to be none, then I will close the public hearing. And then the last public hearing that we have is public hearing to consider the draft of the county program year 2012 consolidated annual performance and evaluation reports by community development. Ms. Ward, anything else that you'd like to add at this point in time?
Just that we have posted it on our website, and it's available for everybody to inspect. So,
And I will open that public hearing at this time and ask if there's anyone here wishing to speak to that matter. There being none, then is there any action that we need to take at this time on that?
no, we'll complete the report, submit to the auditor's office to reconcile it, and we'll submit to you for your signature. Then we'll submit to HUD. Then we'll ask the court to receive and file it.
I'll close the public hearing, and again, there's no action necessary at this time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Manius.
Thank you, Your Honor. Members of the Court, if we can go to the Administrator's section, item 1, we're requesting that the court approve the compensation expenses and allowances of certain county and precinct officials as required by Chapter 152 of the Texas Local Government Code.
Move approval.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Members of the Court, if we can now go to item number 2, we're requesting that the Commissioners Court approve the Tarrant County's fiscal year 2014 budget at its highest levels, cost center, and account group categories as follows. General Fund, $444,762,368. Road and Bridge Fund, $31,588,918. And the Debt Service Fund, $35,328,437, for a total of $511,679,723.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Members of the Court, if we can go to item number 3, we're requesting that the Commissioners Court approve Tarrant County government's tax rate for tax year 2013 as follows. Maintenance and Operations, .236828. Interest and Sinking, which is the debt service, .027172, for a total tax rate of .264 per $100 valuation.
Your Honor, would you recognize me for a motion?
Yes, sir, please.
I have looked at the tax rate history for Tarrant County going back to the year 2007. The tax rate that we are about to adopt, 0.264 cents, has been our tax rate since 2009. In 2008, we lowered the tax rate from 0.2715 cents to 0.2665. So in effect, we have either lowered or kept our tax rate the exact same level since 2007. However, the legislature, in what they see as a move towards transparency, has required of us that if, in adopting the same tax rate, you raise one additional dollar of revenue from that tax rate, that you declare that you are raising taxes. To that, I say there is a fine line between transparency and demagoguery. However, here is my motion. Among the large counties in the state of Texas, Tarrant County has the second lowest tax rate. The county's rate remains the same at 26.4 cents per $100 in valuation. However, I am required to make a motion for a tax increase even when the tax rate remains the same, if that rate raises one more dollar than last year. Since I want to keep the tax rate the same, my motion must be this. I move that property taxes be increased by the adoption of a tax rate of 26.4 cents, which is effectively a 0.2%, 0.2% increase in the, it says in the tax rate. It's not an increase in the tax rate at all. It's an increase in revenue generated by the same tax rate. But at any rate, I make that motion.
A second. We have a motion and a second, and the only thing that I would add is that the actual revenue we are collecting is less, but because of senior tax exemption and ceilings that are placed upon what we can collect, the way that calculation to determine that we increased happens is it ignores the senior exemptions and it ignores court-ordered reductions. And because of those, if those weren't there and the revenue was raised on those particular ones, then we would have an increase in tax revenue. But our actual revenue raised this year, dollars of tax revenue, will be less than what we raised last year. Any other discussion or comments?
We should have everyone thoroughly confused at this point.
Well, and most of the legislature, I think, would be thoroughly confused if they had any idea what they had passed in the first place. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Members of the Court, if we can go to item number 4. We're requesting that the Commissioners Court approve the Tarrant County Hospital District's fiscal year 2014 budget.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Members of the Court, we can go to item number 5. We're requesting that the Commissioners Court approve the Tarrant County Hospital District's tax rate for tax year 2013 as follows. Maintenance and operation .226253, interest and sinking .001644, for a total tax rate of .227897 per $100 valuation.
And again, everything I said before, cut and paste it right here. The Tarrant County Hospital District currently has a property tax rate of 22.7897 cents. The district's tax rate is remaining the same at 22.7897 cents per $100 in value. However, I am required to make a motion for a tax increase even when the tax rate remains the same, if that rate raises $1 more than last year. Since I want to keep the tax rate the same as last year, I am required to move as follows. I move that property taxes be increased by the adoption of the same tax rate as last year of 22.7897 cents per $100 in valuation, which is effectively a 0.2% increase. And I'm going to stop there because I refuse to call it a raise in the tax rate because that's not what it is. That's my motion.
I'll second.
A motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Members of the Court, if we can go to item number 6. We're requesting that the Tarrant County Commissioners Court approve the Tarrant County Emergency Services District Number 1 fiscal year 2014 budget and tax rate of .08 per $100 valuation for tax year 2013.
Again. The Tarrant County Emergency Services District Number 1 currently has a property tax rate of 6.4 cents. Due to the severe decline in the district's appraisal roll due to mineral values and my desire to maintain fire and ambulance services in the unincorporated areas of Tarrant County, I move to approve the district's budget and move that property taxes be increased by the adoption of a tax rate of 8 cents, which is effectively a 7% increase in the tax rate. And that's correct. That is an increase in the tax rate.
A second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
We done, Mr. Manius?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. On item number 7, since this is a legislative policy statement, we have a policy that requires that we have 5 members voting in the affirmative, so we're going to hold that for 1 week, Commissioner.
It's fine.
Thank you. Members of the Court, if we can go now to item number 8. We're requesting that the Commissioners Court finds that the loss of $49,633.71 of tax funds were not the result of Ron Wright's negligence or criminal action, and the Commissioners Court indemnifies the tax assessor collector for the loss of these funds, as authorized under Section 157.903 of the Texas Local Government Code. I might just say that what has happened is that there were refunds or the lack of refund. There were refunds that that the county made that should have been shared with the municipalities. Those refunds at one time totaled, or the interest part totaled $534,000 and change. Mr. Wright has whittled that down, if you will, to $49,633, and staff is recommending approval of this action.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you, members of court. Now we are going to go to item number 9. In this, I'm not going to request the. Well, let me do the request, and then there's going to be several people who are going to be coming up and speaking as it relates to this. We're requesting that the court adopt an order authorizing the issuance of Tarrant County, Texas Limited Tax Refunding and Improvement Bonds, Series 2013, specify the terms and the features of said bonds, levying a continuing direct ad valorem value tax for the payment of said bonds, and resolving other matters incident and related to the issuance, sale, payment, and delivery of said bonds, including the approval and execution of a purchase contract and escrow agreement, and the approval and distribution of an official statement. Obviously, I did not write that, but I read it. So with that, we have presentations. First of all, we're going to ask First Southwest. Come on. Ms. Alexander is here to address the court.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm going to be speaking from the book you have in front of you. I have good news, I believe. We were in the market yesterday pricing the county's bonds. We sold $72,260,000 of limited tax refunding and improvement bonds, Series 2013. As you'll recall from a month ago when my colleague David Mednich was here, he talked a little bit about the plan of finance for this, and that included a $40 million of voted new debt for new projects, and then the balance of this was for refunding for savings. We sold these bonds to a group that included J.P. Morgan, Siebert, Branford, Shank, Citigroup, and Stevens. And there's been a lot of volatility in the market over the last several months. We found some stability this past week, and yesterday appeared to be a good day. So we've actually brought back savings that were in excess of what we showed you back in August. So behind tab 1 are copies of the rating reports from Moody's and Standard & Poor's. They've affirmed the AAA ratings of the county, which are the highest available. You can read those reports at your leisure. Behind tab 2, quickly review sort of the economics of the transaction. So you'll see the payment schedule and the true interest cost at the bottom, which is really the county's average borrowing cost for this transaction of 3.52%. Behind the next page is the savings. You'll see the gross savings in the column on the far right, total almost $3.3 million. That's cash flow savings to the county. And we measure the efficiencies of refundings based on present value savings, and so we've calculated that. And then
Settle, I hope you just didn't call Russia.
Probably Syria.
Now, you're under tab.
I'm still behind tab 2 on page 2.
I got distracted.
Yeah, I understand. I was trying not to be. Keep on going, right?
So the far right-hand corner, that
3.3 million, just shy of 3.3 million is the gross cash flow savings from this refinancing.
Okay.
And that's after all transaction costs, so that's true cash flow savings to the county.
Okay.
We measure efficiencies of refundings based on present value savings, and we look at that as it relates to the actual amount we're refunding. That's what the 7.42% there at the bottom is. We like to see that number to be at least 3.5%, and this is obviously well in excess of that. What we showed you last month, I think, was about 6.9%, so even better than that. And then
we didn't extend the life of that debt.
no, we didn't. It's over the same term. So the savings, as you'll see, end in 2025. The bonds actually go out 20 years, but this is matches up with the existing debt that we're taking out, so we're not extending the life of the bonds. And then a quick summary of the bonds we actually refunded are on the next page. You'll see the average, the interest rates range from 4 to 5%, and they're callable in 2014 and 2015. So there's some of the counties' 2004 and 2005 bonds.
What's the highest interest rate we probably have outstanding right now on our bonds? Do you know, Ronald?
Coupon rate is probably 5%, but the effective rate is probably not that high. In fact, behind tab 3, my segue, we have the historical sale results for the county. And just we like to keep track of these because the question tends to come up quite a bit. You'll see that we always include the issue's average life, which is basically how long it takes for half the principal to be repaid. It's a good way to measure comparable deals. If one deal has a lot higher average life, you'd expect it to have a lot higher average interest rate, all things being equal. So you can see some of the historical rates that the county sold at, and they're all below 5%, Judge, so on the average borrowing cost. And then the last tab is just the offering document that we use to market the bonds. Again, we were very pleased with the results, and be happy to answer any questions.
J.P. Morgan was the lead on this,
Yes, sir.
and so the way that was divided out, where they got about 40% of the bonds to sell, and then the other three entities got 20% each.
That's their liability. The actual performance is dictated by the orders that are submitted. So it
I
gets
hope that everything was divided pretty much that way.
I think the economics will turn out close to that. We can certainly report back on that.
I'd like for, if you wouldn't mind, to report back on that.
What were the bonds?
J.P. Morgan, Citibank, Stevens Group, and
Siebert Rand
Siebert.
Bank.
yeah. Any other questions? And I guess we need a.
Oh, wait a minute.
I just would like to congratulate First
That's great.
Southwest.
I mean, it's a great
and the
result.
county is absolutely great. First Southwest, we did a great job, and the underwriters did as well. So, congratulations. Don't want to get into politics, and excuse my clumsiness there, but Commissioner Brooks is correct. Laura and I had a long conversation with the comptroller's office about this very problem, this Tell the Truth Texas website and these sorts of issues. Unfortunately, Ms. Combs has not created an atmosphere of transparency. We told them this was going to be the fact. It's a total misinformation and just incorrect data. We told them at the time that we're going to have issuers going out with bond issues, and they're going to have data on their website that will probably conflict with the real data that we put in our offering documents. This is a litigious society, and so if you got an investor that buys bonds and 5 years later, 2 years later, say, well, that website said this. Our concern is that we're putting out accurate information for the county, for the city, in its offering documents. I don't want to get Laura into this, she doesn't want to, but she went on the website the other day. We went out with Fort Worth in an offering document, had all the accurate information, and Truth in Taxation you pulled up had it absolutely way overstated. I mean, it's a sad fact, and it's a site that needs to be.
Is that Truth in Taxation? Is that an arm of
I shouldn't say Truth in Taxation.
Tell the Truth.
Tell the Truth, Texas. They overstated it by how many?
And that's the comptroller's office?
Yeah. It was a Susan Combs move, and maybe her goals were laudable. I don't know, but we warned them this was going to happen, and it happened. They told us, no, we'll make sure we'll take the steps. We'll work with the cities. We'll get the correct information.
They overstated the city's debt. They said it had $3.3 billion outstanding, and the city probably has $1.7 billion outstanding. It's a little.
So imagine an investor.
How much did they overstate? Did they overstate
I
ours?
think the county's is okay.
And I'm just saying, it won't always be okay necessarily. It creates a problem, just like you all being, it's an implication that you've raised your tax rate when you haven't. It's just misinformation. It's not transparency. It's just plain flat incorrect.
Wrong.
And the fact is this, if they misstate it when you have an offering, you have the risk of having differing information in the marketplace. And we warned them, they acknowledged it, they said, oh, we'll make sure to check everything with the city before we do it, and issuers, they just posted it. So I just think it's worthy to know, because I don't, I don't get involved in politics. I don't have any influence, but something needs to be done. We had that call with the city, thinking that might produce some cooperation, and obviously there were no discussions.
Usually when we ask them to correct something, they just make it worse.
Well, I think Laura's going to provide them with correct information, but why should you have to do that to correct misinformation, especially when you're in the midst of an offering? I can just see this down the road creating significant disclosure issues. And it's going to differ from what you have continuing disclosure you have to make each year. So each year you're going to make sure that there's, because the bonds are traded. Should people be trading on what you filed with Emma, or should they trade on what's filed in Tell the Truth, Texas?
Well, I guess, from our perspective, the information was correct, you're saying.
Correct.
From the cities, if they have a problem, then can they bring suit against the state?
No, they can't. And the only reason I raise this is because it comes back to what Commissioner Brooks said. It's something that it could come back to haunt you all. We would have come to you all, but we had this conversation quite a while ago when the city was in the midst of getting ready for offerings, long before you all, wanting to make sure that this problem didn't happen. And the best laid plans had happened anyway. So,
okay. Thank you very much.
Congratulations to Ann Diamond. It's not something everybody would know, but she was elected. She's the Tarrant County Bar President.
Oh. Congratulations, Ann.
Congratulations. Congratulations.
Thank y'all.
And I apologize if that's out of line, but it is something that it can create problems even for you all in the future.
Thank you, Dan.
Then we need to,
Your Honor.
item 9, we need to adopt that.
We're requesting that you approve the order.
So move.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Ms. Tidwell.
We have one item for the court's consideration this morning. That's to receive and file the auditor's report of the review of the district clerk's civil section.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Mr. Phillips.
Good morning.
Good morning.
It is requested that Commissioners Court authorize county staff to conduct negotiations with HOK and HKS architects for architectural space master planning services for the Tim Curry Criminal Justice Building, the 350 West Belknap Building, and the Criminal Justice Building in downtown Fort Worth.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion? I'm assuming on all of those that we're talking about the inside specifically with regards to the old criminal courts building, because the next item we're going to talk about is the outside?
Yes, it's space master planning for occupants, for office space and court space and those type of things.
And on the Tim Curry Criminal Justice Center, is that going to be something where you're going to kind of create a committee or look at from the folks that are in that building, and much as we have with our other buildings as we've either built them or gone through that process?
Judge, the first step is the planning stage as far as the requirements of their space. We're going to meet with all the criminal district courts, the county courts, district attorney. There's a whole list of folks, district clerk, CSCD, pretrial release, sheriff's department, county clerk, court diversion programs, and on, to see what type of space they need now to meet current needs and for the next 20 or so years. And we'll put that together with stacking and blocking diagrams for the building and see how it lays out. And then we're going to try to come to you with an idea of what it might cost to do that work. And that would be in Tim Curry and at 350. Also, at the 200 building, we will be looking at what it's going to take to renovate that for general office space to help you make decisions regarding the future of the 200 West Belknap building.
Is that a historical building?
It is. It has a state archaeological landmark, which means it would require, if we decide to sell it, we could, regardless. If we decide it needed to be demolished and it could not be habitable, it would require a 90-day demolition delay with the state of Texas. which would allow them 90 days to make a lot of phone calls.
How much leeway do we have as far as remodeling it as office space?
We have a lot of leeway, Judge. It's the outside. It's really been reworked over the years. It had the courtrooms, it had the sheriff, it had the county clerk, it had the district attorney, it had all the county operations, essentially, jail and those sorts of things in it, and none of it's like it was. The holes in the floor, they're on the 5th and 4th floor that were used for the gallows, have been filled in.
It's a shame.
Let's hope we don't go back to that.
We have a motion and a second, I believe. Any further discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. About how long do you think it's going to take?
Judge, I think it's going to take at least 6 months. They've got to make a lot of meetings and go back and do some discussions with each department at first, talk about what their space needs, put it in a kind of an Excel tabular format, and go ahead and validate that with them, then try to figure out what the adjacencies are with each department. We've got to move a bunch of folks from 200 and 300 over. There's an idea that we might move some of the CSCD folks into Tim Curry maybe to help support some of those courts. I'm not sure there's room for that, but that has to be done. Then they come back and see how it might fit in the schematic design on each floor. There is thoughts that we may have to increase the footprint of a criminal district courtroom because the needs of the jury rooms we have now are fairly small and been problematic for years. The court holding areas for the inmates, the ADA issues regarding the courtrooms themselves, and conference areas and so on and so forth. So we do have some preliminary documents from years ago that put 6 courts per floor in that building. Right now there's 8. 8 won't fit back with the requirements. So we'd essentially be reducing the number of courts per floor, and it would be a dramatic change and a costly change. So we have to go through this process to see if that's really required.
Again, I would hope at several stages within that process. I understand going around and interviewing everybody in the beginning, but I would hope that after that is done, I would hope that as you move to the next stage of where to do and whatever, that you bring all the parties together and representatives at least from all the parties and lay that stuff out.
I will do that, Judge, and we will have, of course, I'll bring back updates to you when we first make that first pass.
And let's recognize that this is an opportunity that is occasioned by building the new civil courts building and moving the civil courts building and related departments out of those buildings that we're looking at replanning into the new civil courts building. So that building is a blessing and a challenge at the same time.
Next I have, it's requested that Commissioners Court approve a professional services contract with Janney and Elsner Associates for engineering services related to the exterior brick and tile cladding distress on the Criminal Justice Building at 200 Westbound Ave.
Move for approval.
Second. And we can do this?
Yes, we can.
Okay.
We have a motion and a second, and I guess they're looking at how are we going to attach those bricks back to the structure?
Yes, there is concern of mine that the repairs and replacement of the exterior of that building is one of the last steps we need to do on that block. There's a lot of things we need to do first, and we need to make sure it won't fall off while we're doing those other things. And we need to also help determine what's going to be needed to put in the construction documents to repair the cladding. We're going to be cutting some large holes in the side of the building all the way through and see how that thing would hopefully how it used to be attached and what's behind the initial face brick. So there's lots of things we need to do first. Buy and renovate 350, tear down 300, remove all the sky bridges, and then at that point we should repair or replace the exterior, not before.
When's your estimate on 300 coming down? I didn't
We're
ask.
all listening.
There's a lot of things that have to happen, Judge, before then. We have to do this space planning exercise and determine how we're going to move those people in 200 and 300 out. There's about 165 CSCD employees, and then there's the court diversion programs as well that are in 300. We've got to renovate space for them wherever they're going to go, which is probably 350. That means we'll have to plan out where they're going to go. Then we'll have to fund how we're going to design to renovate the floors. Then we'll have to build out the floors. Then we'll have to move them. Then we'll have to figure out how we're going to disconnect and patch 350 it's got a sky bridge. Then we'll have to figure out how we're going to do the sky bridge on the other side. Then we'll have to take all the asbestos and lead. There's about $1 million to $2 million of asbestos and lead that are in 300. Take all that out. Then we'll have to figure out how we're going to take that slip joint, cast-in-place concrete building down without damaging anything else around it.
So we may see the reappearance of the big claw.
It's going to be a big, big claw. And I don't have a timetable for that other than it will be a few years. And it'll be quite a bit of money between now and then to get that done.
We have a motion and a second. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Ms. Glenn. Ms. Worthy.
I move to receive and file personnel agenda.
Second. We have a motion and a second for receive and file personnel agenda. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Worthy. Come on down, Mr. Beecham. They play anybody? Another high school team.
What is UAB? Ugly at best or some finishing school?
It's a high school team. A little better than the one y'all played.
How about those Longhorns?
We hadn't fired any coaches yet, but it's still early. We have two items for your consideration this morning. Our first item is a bid award recommendation for bid 2013-116, annual contract for temporary medical transcriptionist for the Health Department. Recommendation will be to award the primary and secondary vendors as shown in your court communique.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Our second and last item is also a bid award recommendation for bid number 2013-122. This is our annual contract for temporary clerical personnel services. Recommendation will be to award a per enterprise basis, again awarding to the primary, secondary, and alternate vendors as shown in your court communique.
Move approval.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Roy Lee.
Commissioner Brooks.
Your Honor, I've got an interlocal agreement with the town of Edgecliff Village. I move approval of item 9M, 1A and B.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Are there any appointments? There being none, then you have before you the claims, including the addendum.
Move approval of the claims, including the addendum.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Briefing items, Mr. Manias.
Thank you, Your Honor. We have one item we'd like to brief the court on. That's item A. These are the public health updates. Dr. Jones is here to address the court at this time.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Just three items to bring up in front of you. West Nile virus, as we know, has been a good year compared to last year. Last week we had 144 mosquito sample pools tested in the laboratory. One of those was positive up in the Grapevine area. To date, we've had 3,003 mosquito sample pools tested, 21 pools that were positive, and 2 human cases, the one in Fort Worth and one in Keller. And that's where we are with West Nile virus. Any questions on that?
Very good.
Second thing, the measles outbreak that was occurring in August. We're still holding at 21 total in the cluster, 16 among Tarrant County residents. Our last current onset was August 21st. We give it at least 3 weeks from the last onset to see if we get more cases. We are investigating other suspects. So far, the suspects that have been reported to us have come back negative. And if they continue to do that through the end of this week, we'll probably be finished with this cluster. And that's a bit on measles. Any questions on that? Not hearing any. The last issue was pertussis. It's been in the news quite a bit. Our county has 440 cases of pertussis we've reported up to the state. Of those, 90 have been infants 12 months and younger. We've had 39 hospitalizations in pertussis so far this year.
All of this begs the question in my mind as to whether or not we are still doing an effective job of emphasizing the need for immunizations. Do we need to implement some sort of program that will emphasize to parents that these diseases that we thought we had eliminated as a result of immunizations are now coming back as a result of parents making the choice not to immunize their children?
I don't think we can never emphasize immunizations until they're completely gone. The good news, at least from the measles outbreak, I think it could have been a lot worse. And as a result of, for our county, a high level of immunization, it didn't go further. As we said before, there's pockets of people who do not elect to immunize their children, as you mentioned, and continuing to market what we believe is a very safe and effective vaccine for measles is worthwhile. On the pertussis side, no vaccine is perfect, and that particular one is less perfect than the others. We're seeing an increase among the 8 to 11-year-olds where their immunity has waned because they got their last one at 4. And then when they hit 12, when they go into 7th grade, it drops off again. So we're seeing that increase there. And then when I look at the numbers of those infants that have had pertussis, most of those are 1, 2, and 3-month-olds before they even got their first shot. And so the vaccine's effective, but it's not like the measles shot where you get it, especially get it twice, you're not going to get disease. There's still that possibility with pertussis.
If they're in the 1, 2, and 3 months, is that potentially because the mother had not gotten that vaccination?
And that's a good point. The current recommendation that started last fall, the national recommendation is that all pregnant moms get the Tdap booster in the 3rd trimester of pregnancy. And we have not been tracking whether that's occurred in these cases. I was just talking about having a special project to look at that. Typically with natural disease, even with natural disease, your immunity wanes over a period of years, and so adults become vulnerable again. And that's why it's important for mom to get it in that 3rd trimester and everyone around her to get a shot before that baby's born if possible. So. But the idea of emphasizing immunizations all the time.
I'm going to go back and ask you, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I'm going to go back and ask you, you said everybody around that baby. Does that mean that we should all be getting a regular vaccination for whooping cough?
The current recommendation is if you've been gone 10 years or more for your tetanus shot, you get another tetanus. But instead of getting that one, you get the one with the pertussis vaccine added to it. It's called the Tdap. And if you haven't had that and you're a grandparent, you're going to be seeing that grandkid, and we would recommend you get it. The only recommendation for adults to get it continuously is every pregnancy currently. I would not be surprised if that changes in the future, but the rest of us is just recommended to get it once as an adult. Does that make sense?
Yeah, based upon the way my kids are having kids, and I think I need to go in and get a shot.
There you go.
Does the Tarrant County Immunization Coalition still exist?
Does the Immunization Coalition still exist?
Excuse me, I just couldn't hear the first part of your question. Yes, it does. And in fact, when you've seen the clips during the measles immunizations and pertussis and everything, you'll see people in the yellow shirts, and that's the Be Wise yellow shirt, and that is part of the collaboration.
So the 440 in your mind is a high number And is this something that we should begin to publicize who should get the Tdap shot?
440 is a high number. The last big year we had was in 2008 with 312. We've easily eclipsed that. We're on our way to 500, if not 600. You would probably have to go back in the 70s or 60s to find that number of cases in our county.
And that's a high number compared to the rest of the state and the rest of the nation.
We are getting hit this year. Last year, other counties got hit. Now, having said that, the state is on its way to having the worst number of cases, as far as number, since the 50s. And we are leading it.
And we've looked to see whether or not there is a particular area, particular group of folks that are getting this, or is this is this spread out throughout the county? Is it not any particular group?
When we last mapped the cases in July, there were not necessarily clusters. Now, there were places where it wasn't being affected so much, like the northwest part of the county, but generally spread over. As far as groups are concerned, white Hispanic infants have been more affected than other groups. And then once you get to that 8 to 11-year-old group, it's white non-Hispanic. That's different this year. And so we've had some folks working at our health department to translate what we've been putting in the media. We've had the English media pretty well covered, make sure we get the Spanish message out as well.
Yeah, I'm fixing to probably make a fool of myself. It won't be the first or the last time, I'm sure. White Hispanic appear to be two different groups. You were saying them as though they were one group.
I said white Hispanic versus non-white Hispanic, or pardon me, versus white non-Hispanic.
But white and Hispanic, I mean, that's where my confusion is. There's Hispanic, there's white.
I think in the common vernacular, that's the way we understand it. But it's usually broken down as white as race and Hispanic as ethnicity. And so that's why we get white Hispanic. It's the way it's usually reported into the state.
The Census Bureau classifies it that way.
That explains the illogical part of that.
So to go back to your question about specific populations, I think as Russ pointed out, we've got the very, very young, the 1 and 2 month olds. And so we're really looking at how to make sure that that expectant mother and the family circle are getting their adult Tdap. And we will be working more with the OB group in the community. We've already had that initial discussion. And then Russ also pointed out the other group is the 8 to 11-year-olds, and that's where you're seeing a waning in the vaccine itself. But they're required to have a booster by the time they go into the 7th grade. So I think overall there'll probably be some looking at that requirement in the future because we're seeing that trend across the country.
So in your discussion of different groups, you mentioned white Hispanic and non-Hispanic.
Non-white Hispanic.
Non-white Hispanic.
White non-Hispanic.
Whatever. What about African American?
We do have a few cases in African Americans, but the numbers have not been all that many. Now that's looking at numbers. I haven't done rates yet, where we actually normalize it by the population underneath it. But when I did them back in July, they were not high.
Let's do a full epidemiological study so we'll know what we're talking about, please. Thank you.
Any other questions at this time? Thank you all.
Thank you.
That's all we have at this time, Your Honor.
We'll now recess from our open meeting and proceed to our closed session to discuss items exempted under Section 551.071, 072, 074, 076, and 087 of the Texas Government Code.
a heck of a bird retriever.
Having returned from our closed session and there being no business to conduct at this time. Having returned from our closed session and there being no business to conduct at this time, we are now adjourned, and please remember that we're adjourning in memory of Dick Anderson.